Hello and welcome to Gazetta Football Korea, your beginner's guide podcast all about South Korean football. I'm your host, Martin Jones. With me today is Korean football expert Tom Clark. All right, Tom.
Hi, mate. Nice to see you. Hope you've had a good week. And I see you've taken the tash off as well.
The tash has come off. Actually, I was talking to a colleague at work, and she asked me if I enjoyed having it off, and I was like, "Oh, okay. Oh, yes, the moustache. But yeah, do you know what? I'm kind of 50-50 on having it off. So kind of the same answer to both questions, really, I guess. So
Bring it back.
yeah. We've got no Yumi, of course, today. I think, well, real life is catching up with Yumi, and she's got other things. Nothing exciting is going to Spurs though this week.
No, yeah,
So yeah,
hopefully we'll get her next week. But yeah, unfortunately not here today. So I'll do my best to make up for her absence.
right. So what do we have, you listener, this week? Game week 11 marked the end of the first round of fixtures, which made game week 12 interesting, as we had teams playing each other for the second time this season. We'll bring you up to speed on all the game week 12 action, and we'll see whether history repeated or not. We'll also look ahead to game week 13 and a couple of interesting games there, with Ulsan going to Sangju and Busan going to Daegu. First of all, though, we're going to start off with a little bit of FA Cup news, the round of 16 taking place midweek. Firstly, though, apologies to Daejeon fans. Which Daejeon team do you mean, Martin? Yep, good shout. There are two, and I got them the wrong way around last week. So Daejeon Korail were the K3 team that got to the final, but it was final last season, but it was Daejeon Hana Citizen who were in the cup. All 11 K1 teams involved. We didn't get a shock from any of the lower league teams, but we did get a shock from Tom's Magpies. Seongnam coming up with the goods against Daegu. They won extra time. We had victories as well for FC Seoul.
Hey, they won on penalties actually, Martin. Seongnam. It went to penalties for them. So yeah, held their nerve and came out 4-2 winners on penalties against Daegu.
FC Seoul also coming out on penalties against Daejeon Hana Citizen. Gangwon beat Gwangju 4-2. And Suwon Blue Wings also took them extra time to dispatch with Jeju United. And somewhat surprisingly, Jeonbuk needed extra time to beat Jeonnam. Sangju Sangmu lost at home to Pohang again after extra time. Bit of a theme here. And Suwon FC, not to be confused with the Blue Wings, lost at home to Busan I Park. And then also, unfortunately, Gyeongju Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power. It's the last we'll be seeing of them in the cup, as they lost, not unsurprisingly, away at Ulsan Hyundai. Quarterfinal scheduled for 29th of July. We'll cover who's playing who and how it works in a later pod. So that was the FA Cup. Nothing too shocking there, other than Seongnam there, really. Tom, where are we up to in terms of manager and transfer news?
Well, the big news is that Suwon's Lee Lim-sang has resigned. The fans are chuffed. They've wanted him out for a real long time. He managed to stick around longer than expected because of the FA Cup last season. So, yeah, lots of Suwon fans will be very happy about that. And it's going to be interesting to see if the team improves without the man who many have thought has been holding them back. Definitely going to be good news for Adam Taggart, who was often taken off early or, even earlier in the season, wasn't playing some of the games. So, yeah, it could be interesting to see what happens there down in Suwon. At the other Suwon, K2 team Suwon FC, they have signed Lars Veldvik off of Jeonbuk, which, again, is an interesting move. It's quite strange for Veldvik. It's a bit of a drop for him from playing in the Dutch Eredivisie last season to now being a K2 player, but probably right now he just wants some regular game time. Suwon are doing great in K2, so he might not walk into the team. It might take him a couple of games to get in, but I'm sure it won't be long before he holds down a place in their lineup. So yeah, I'm sure he'll be getting 90 minutes under his belt, probably get a few goals, maybe promotion with Suwon or a move away from Korea at the end of the season. going to be interesting to follow that. And then somebody who you might have heard of is Modou Barrow. He used to play for Swansea and Reading over here in England. Potentially a good signing. My memory of him is from a few seasons ago, so I'm not really sure what level he's been playing. I think he was in Turkey on loan from Reading as well at some point, I believe. But his move was what triggered Veldvik having to move on, as they needed space in the squad, and I'm assuming they needed to free up wages. You would imagine Veldvik was on a fairly decent wage pack, and Mo Barrow will be on one as well. I don't know if you remember him playing at Swansea in the Premier League.
Yeah, I do a little bit. Yeah, wide attacker, quick, very direct. So, yeah, I think this could be a good signing for Jeonbuk, and we'll come on to Jeonbuk's attacking prowess later on this pod, or potentially lack of.
And another one that has been doing the rounds, and Yumi has talked about it a couple of times, is of course Kim Min-jae, and it seems like he's developing into the what could be a summer-long transfer saga. The Korean press were reporting that it was good as done, and then the next day it was this is a move to Spurs, and then the next day it was no, it's not done. Spurs or whoever else wants to sign him over here in Europe, in Germany, or probably Tottenham. It seems to be the favourites, that they need to up their bid and match the price that's being asked from his club Beijing in China. But then Sky Sports are reporting that it's a monster bid needed to sign the monster. These two things really could be the same story, just being reported differently by Korean and English press. It could just be, Spurs need to up their bid a little bit, and that's Sky's way of drumming up a clickbait is to write in the headline that it's going to take a monster bid, and maybe the Korean press are just saying they need to match the asking price. But from what I've read, he is back in China, but he doesn't want to be there. Probably understandably, if you're in your mid-20s and you're playing really well, why would you not want to move to the Premier League? He might be being paid very well in China, I'm sure he is, but it's presumably it's not about the money. It's about coming over, your profile, the level of football, and playing in the Premier League or in the Bundesliga if that's where it's at. So it could go on for a while, because the transfer window hasn't even opened here yet. I think it opens next week at the end of the Premier League, and then it runs until October. I think maybe it's till end of September for international transfers, and then there's a domestic window until beginning of October. But it's a long time, whichever way it is. It's not even open, and it's been going. Every day is a different story right now. So that is one to watch. And of course, the big news is, and it seems to have been confirmed, that Key is joining FC Seoul. Great for FC Seoul, great for the K-League. Not sure it's so good for Key having to play with FC Seoul right now, but I guess he wants to play. He wants to be back in Korea, and that seems to be the only realistic club that could have signed him.
Yeah, and if there was a team that was in need of galvanizing, it probably is FC Seoul.
Yeah,
cool, very good.
But I'm not sure if as good as he is, and he will come in and be one of the best, if not the best player in the league. It's going to be hard to tell, actually. He hasn't played regularly for a little while, so it might take him a while to get into the league. But I don't know. He obviously is a very, very good player, but whether he's good enough to lift an entire club, I don't know. That's a huge ask of anybody.
Yeah, and they are quite well stacked on midfield options from what I understand. So you can see a potential domino.
Once he's fully fit, he will walk into their starting lineup for sure. It's just, I don't know. Can he instantly make the defense better? Can he make the striker score more goals? How much can one central midfielder do? It's going to be interesting to see, but it's going to be great to have him back in the league, and it's also going to really get audiences watching. And who knows, if fans are allowed back in, it will definitely get a lot more fans in the grounds for his games once they are allowed back in, which isn't looking likely at the minute. But when it does happen, he will bring supporters in for sure.
Good stuff. Thanks for that, Tom. Yeah, he's certainly got international pedigree and obviously a huge name back in South Korea. So yeah, hopefully that will raise the profile kind of domestically and internationally as well. Right, let's crack on with our Game Week 12 recap. FA Cup action midweek, of course, so no Friday game. And of all the teams playing on Saturday, 4 of them went to extra time midweek. So potentially a bit of weariness in the legs on Saturday. We'll go first to Busan I-Park versus Gwangju FC. Busan are in 7th on a good run. Their last loss coming against this weekend's opponents, Gwangju, in Game Week 6. Gwangju winning that 3-1. After this, though, Busan played Daegu, Ulsan, and Sangju Sangmu. So they were looking to get points on the board while they still could. Gwangju were in 9th, 4 losses on the spin for them. Felipe did play, and Gwangju ended their losing streak, but Tom, they only took away a point, as this one finished 0-0.
So yeah, I mean it was 0-0, and my prediction was based on Felipe playing. It would be a draw. If he wasn't playing, then Busan would win. In the end, it was a draw, and he did play, but it didn't make any difference to the scoreline. I just thought if he wasn't playing, then Gwangju would have no chance and they wouldn't score. But even with him, they didn't score. But it was a contest between 2 very even teams. Last season, Gwangju were the better side when they were both in K2, and they looked the most likely to win here. But the Busan defence was solid enough and kept Gwangju's chances to the minimum until the last few minutes, really. Busan didn't offer an awful lot going forward, but a clean sheet, and they stay 4 points ahead of Gwangju. So it's a good afternoon for Busan in my book. Gwangju's best chances came in almost in injury. Right at the end of the game. It was a late substitute, Kim Ju-kyung, who almost won the game. It would have been virtually his first touch. Felipe laid the ball off nicely to him, and Kim Ju-kyung took that shot across the goal and it hit the outside of the post and went wide. It was a decent chance. He was on the angle. So, I mean, you're talking a couple of inches, and if it was a couple of inches the other side of the post, it bounces and it goes in. It's a brilliant substitution and it's a great win. In the 90th minute, Kim again had a point blank range effort. It was brilliantly saved. Turned out it wouldn't have counted after Felipe pushed his man in the build-up. He nodded it back across the goal. But that was a millisecond before the shot, so the keeper would have had no idea. And after spending the last few weeks slating the goalkeepers, I think it's only fair to give some credit when it's due. I mean, it was a really good save. Didn't matter, but that's not the point. The point was the guy was inside the 6-yard box and he got his foot out, blocked it, and then the defenders cleared it. And that was 90th minute. And after that, there were no more chances. It was a good end to a not particularly great game. Busan were hanging on a little bit at the end. Gwangju were really going for it. They kind of felt with, 10, 15 minutes that they thought that the 3 points were there for them, but couldn't get that goal. Just about a fair result because Busan's defence was decent. If Gwangju had got a late goal, it wouldn't have been totally undeserved. Both teams look set in mid-table, which would represent a decent first season back in the top flight for them. So, 0-0, probably not many complaints from either side.
Your game finishing there, Busan I-Park 0, Gwangju FC 0. For Busan, that point was enough to move them up to 6th, and Gwangju stay 9th. Okay, let's move on to Sangju Sangmu at home to Daegu FC. This was a draw in Game Week 5, but both teams have kicked on somewhat from there. Sangju in 3rd coming into this game. Their winning streak coming to an end last week against bottom-placed Incheon of all teams. Daegu in 5th, their winning streak also ending last week, but at the hands of first-placed Ulsan. On recent form, this was Sangju the best defence versus Daegu the best attack, and it was the defence that prevailed. And Tom, Sangju even managed to score more than one goal.
Yeah, they did, and they should have scored more than the 2 that they did as well. It was in the first half. There was an absolutely unbelievable couple of misses from Sangju. In 22 minutes, they managed to shoot across the goal when it was one of those. It's easier to score than miss. And it was a really poor miss. But then 2 minutes later than that, he thought, all right, they're going to score now. But again, it was a terrible miss. They managed to hit the post from a couple of meters out, and then there was a goalmouth scramble that's followed. They're not able to get the ball in there, and it was just. But all of those chances looked easier to score than miss. Really bad finishing from Sangju. Former Daegu man Park Byung-hyun and the Sangju player Park Young-woo, who were most culpable for those misses there. And it was one of those where you're just watching it, even on the replay, you're like, how did one of those chances not go in? In the end, it didn't matter because they won 2-0. But Daegu, not great yesterday. The one chance really in the first half they had was pretty much the last kick. I think it was actually the last kick of the half. It was Kim Dae-won. He fired straight at the goalkeeper, possibly going across the goal might have been the better option, with a cross come shot type of thing. And maybe a Daegu player could have turned it in. But to be honest, I mean, that was at best a half chance. And the fact that that's what I'm talking about from Daegu's first half just shows how little there was. They did start the second half better, but only for about 5 minutes or so. And Sangju took the lead 53 minutes. Well-directed header into the corner. He was completely free in the box, but his header still hit the corner of the goal, gave the goalkeeper no chance from Oh Se-hoon. That was totally free to nod in, deserved lead after their first half domination, and pretty shocking Daegu defence. And, Sangju were pushing for a second goal as well. They didn't just settle for the 1-0. Lee Chang-dong hit a great volley into the side netting. It took the commentators about 30 seconds before they realised it hadn't got in. They were extremely excited for what they thought was a great goal, and then you notice all the players just running back, for a goal kick, and you realise, all right, that didn't go in, but Sangju were really on top. That did keep Daegu in it at 1-0, and they almost equalised, and it was Cecina with it was trademark free kick from him, but again, it was some quality goalkeeping. Lee Chang-gun got down to his left. He made the save, but he was quick to make the rebound as well. He kind of parried the first one up and then caught the rebound, but it was one of those, he would have known he was about to get clattered by the striker coming in, because he was tearing in for the loose ball, and he did, but the keeper kept hold of it despite getting smashed. So again, some credit there. And then Sangju did go and seal the win. It was in the 80th minute. Kang Sang-woo latched onto a simple yet clever pass from Oh Se-hoon, who he played it behind him into space, but he was just very aware whether it was Kang had given the call or he'd just seen him in his periphery. But credit to Oh there. It was a really nice pass. Kang hit it first time into the top corner from the edge of the box. He was under pressure from the defence, who actually took him out after he'd finished it. But it was a really well worked goal. It was just game over. Daegu didn't look like coming back at 1-0, let alone 2-0. Daegu got a late red card as well. It was a bit unnecessary, as Tsubasa got. It's one of those where it's unnecessary, didn't have any effect in the game, but you get suspended for the week after. So it's just, in the 89th minute, it seems a bit pointless. He just stopped a Sangju counterattack. Kind of just wonder why, even if they go on and score the third there, I don't know. I think it's better that you keep yourself available for the next game rather than you get yourself suspended. But it was also, it was funny to see that there were fans at this game, which, we've been talked about fans not being allowed in the stadium. Is it? They weren't officially at the game. And I'm not talking about the three men dressed as persimmons who were obviously at all their games wandering around in the stands. It looked like a small group of friends or family, and they were outside the stadium up on a hill with some fold-out chairs. You saw them having a beer or having a drink overlooking the ground. And I'm surprised we haven't seen more of it. And I'm not sure, maybe they have been there and the TV just hasn't shown them because they don't want to encourage other fans to come and do the same, or maybe it's the first time they've been there. It just made me think of maybe the TV cameras weren't showing it because it's like we don't see streakers anymore. They might still get on the pitch, but the cameras don't like to show it and give them the publicity. So who knows? Maybe there's been fans at Sangju every week and we just haven't known about it.
Yeah, so I wanted to touch on a couple of players who you mentioned there for Sangju Sangmu. Oh Se-hoon and Kang Sang-woo. And Kang Sang-woo's been involved since the beginning of the season, played in every single game, 5 goals and 4 assists. Oh Se-hoon just coming back into it recently, but I think the player we were all thinking was going to be their best player was Moon Sun-min, but we've hardly seen anything of him this season.
Yeah, he started off all right. Then he's been on the bench. I think he was started on the bench for this game. And yeah, I guess it's just Sangju are going well. They don't want to change a team that's doing well and up in up in third position. So yeah, why change it when it's working? But maybe, we're halfway through, not even halfway through the total season, so plenty of time for Moon to come good. But yeah, the two boys you pointed out got both the goals. They're linking up well. Second goal was really nice, and it was just a lovely cutback, and it's not a ball straight to him, but it was into the space where he just knew that he was going to get there, going to be the first man to it. It was really, really nicely well worked goal. Good partnership they've got going.
Yeah, I like the manager as well, Kim Tae-won. But I think that's mainly because he looks like he could be a bouncer at a trendy Gangnam club or something like that. A quite imposing figure, bald head, but always seems to be wearing a nice jacket. So, yeah, there you go. But yeah, clearly got them well organised because they've got a fantastic defence and starting to look even better going forwards now. And if they can get Moon Sun Min firing as well, they will. They're already a legitimately good team, but yeah, who knows what they could do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your final score there: Sangju to Daegu 0. Sangju stay third, but make up ground on the top two, as we'll come on to later. And Daegu stay fifth. The other game on Saturday was FC Seoul at home to Pohang Steelers. FC Seoul were in 10th with a win, a draw and a loss in their last three. Pohang are in 4th, having found a bit of consistency recently, not least in a defence which has only conceded once in the last 4. When these teams met in game week 3, Seoul came away from the Steelyard with all 3 points in a 2-1 win. This time it went a bit more to form, and the Steelers came away with the win as they took this 3-1.
Yeah, I was mainly concentrating on the other two games, knowing that you would never miss your Steelers playing, Martin. So why don't you tell us about this?
Yeah, I mean, I touched on the cup ties midweek and whether teams would be a bit weary, and I think we saw that in all 3 games, with the first halves being a bit slow, and this game took a bit of time to get going as well. Seoul causing Pohang all kinds of problems from corners in that game, unsurprisingly, but it was a corner from Pohang that almost saw them take the lead midway through the first half. Brandon O'Neill with the corner, and veteran centre-back Kim Kwang-suk slamming the ball against the header. First goal came in the 38th minute, and it went to Seoul. And it's probably what the game needed, really, Seoul taking the lead, because it certainly made the game more interesting. Cho Young-wook for FC Seoul. Lovely chip ball over the defence by Osmar, and Cho timed his run to absolute perfection. Kang in goal for Pohang. I mean, we dug him out last week, and he got he'd been in brilliant form, and he won goalkeeper of the month. But he seems to be a bit of a curse, as it so often is with these. And he wasn't great last week. And all Cho needed to do was just lift it over his head. And first of all, I was thinking, is that Kang's fault in goal, or what really? I mean, a striker in that situation is going to score 9 times out of 10, but on the replay, Kang was already on the edge of his box, and just made it really easy for Cho just to lift it over his head. So probably a bit more of a keeper error for me, following on from his shockers from last weekend. Went in 1-0 at half-time. Second half, a bit more tempo in this game, and provided not least by Palacios for Pohang. 6 minutes in, his run into the right-hand side of the box, which he did all afternoon, really, or particularly in the second half. But then he pulled it back for a tap-in from Ilychenko. Lovely move by Pohang, but Palacios was the key man there. And then about 10 minutes later, Palacios, again causing problems with his direct running. He was playing nominally from the centre, but he drifted around quite a lot. Obviously, Palacevic coming back from injury, he started on the bench. Palacios this time cutting in from the left-hand side. And he went past a couple of defenders, but he kind of lost the ball, and the ball was going out of play. However, he's a quick guy, he managed to get his toe to it. And for some reason, Yu Sang-hoon in goal for Seoul just kind of came out, sliding out and dived at his feet. I'm not really sure why, because it wasn't a dangerous area. It was kind of like a yard from the dead ball line, and tripped him up. And the ball was kind of at best still just on the dead ball line. So I think still just about in play, which I think makes the keeper's decision all the more crazy, really. But it went to VAR, and the referee gave it as a penalty, which I think was probably the right call. Ilyuchenko stepped up, made no mistake, and that made it 2-1 to Pohang, and Pohang were kind of in control at this point.
Martin, on that penalty decision, I'm still 50-50 with it. I mean, obviously, if Yu doesn't come out and he doesn't give them a decision to make, but I say I didn't have full concentration on this game. I know this was in the second half, but it was I don't know, like he basically just kicked the ball out and then left his legs there for the keeper to take him. I would probably err on the side of that's not a penalty because he's looking for it, and the ball's dead. It was I don't know, like it's not the most controversial penalty ever given, but I just about side with Seoul here that it shouldn't have been.
Yeah, I think morally speaking, if you can say that, it wasn't a penalty because there was no way Palacios was getting onto the ball, and it wasn't. He wasn't in any danger of scoring. So I think it was a letter of the law one, and
I think you're right. I think letter of the law, yes, you can understand why the referee gives it, but common sense says no.
Yeah, well, that made it 2-1 to Pohang. Ilyuchenko tucking that away. Palacios having a really great game in the second half. So he already had 2 assists, if you like, if you include the winning the penalty as an assist. And he didn't get subbed off this time, which we've seen him get subbed off early quite a few times this season. Even in the 88th minute, he was tracking back and making tackles. And in that time, he actually sprung the counter-attack. And if only his pass had been a bit better to Songmin Kyu, who was in space, he could have had a hat-trick of assists. But Palacios did, in fact, seal the points late on. Palacios, who came on for the last 10 minutes, Palacios got the assist. Counter-attack, lovely turn by Palacios in midfield. Start the counter-attack. Pass was a touch on the heavy side, but Palacios made the best of it, turned inside the defender, then just leathered it past the keeper. So good counter-attack, and Palacios, having a cracking game there. Pohang could even have got another one late on. Songmin Kyu, again, another counter-attack. He hit the post and just couldn't control the rebound. But good comeback win for the Steelers. Palacios grabbing the headlines. A bit of weariness in the legs from the cup games, but both teams now have 7 days rest before the next weekend's fixtures.
As I say, I didn't see a huge amount of this game, but in the first half, when I did give it some of my attention, because this is one of the games where it overlapped with the second half of another game, and so it didn't have my main attention. But every time I did, it seemed that the camera was on Osmar, and especially around the goal for Seoul. It just seems that he was so clearly the boss of the team in that half. Organising, encouraging, talking constantly. The cameras kept on focusing in on him, zooming in on him, and you see him, and I'd no idea what his language skills are like, but you assume they can communicate, whether it's in English, Spanish, Korean, whatever. But he's communicating with them. From what I saw, anyway, it just seems that he off the ball anyway, at least organising everything. And then, but I mentioned it to you, and you said he was then taken off at halftime, which I don't know how he was playing in general. It just seemed that it was odd to take off your organiser.
Yeah, it did, and we were touching on the early games in the season when these teams have met, and he was causing Pohang all kinds of problems from set pieces. I know Pohang struggled from set pieces anyway, but it was set pieces that won this game earlier in the season for Seoul. Osmar scored one directly, and he was a thorn in Pohang's side all game. Like you say, he's a good player, and he's there, seems to be their main man in midfield, and got taken off at half time. Another player got taken off at the same time as well. So that suggests it's probably tactical rather than injury. And the camera did pan to him a few times just at the beginning of that second half. So I don't know what was being said on commentary, but the way the second half went, that just seemed like a real blunder from Seoul. Because he is a like you say, he's a good player, good passer. He cajoles the team, but he's also a physically imposing player as well. So he's great, really, that kind of all action box to box midfielder. So yeah, not sure what's happening there. I mean, as a Pohang fan, I was glad to see him go, so wasn't too complaining. But yeah, happy with the Pohang win. I think Pohang probably still would have won it, even if he'd stayed on. And really good performance from Palacios.
Another thing I noticed in this game was they're trying out this new technology. I'm not sure what the camera is called, but it's a wire cam, but it gives you like the way it moves around so quickly that you get some great angles of the goals, and it gets you right in behind the players when they're taking their shot or when they're going in for the penalty or something. It's such good quality picture as well. They've definitely used it before at the Seoul World Cup Stadium for another game. I can't remember which game it was, but I've seen it before. But yeah, I really like that. I hope they bring that to a few more of especially the World Cup stadiums where they've probably got the facilities to do it.
Yeah, maybe the fans won't go back with views like that on TV. Right, your final score up there was Seoul 1, Pohang 3. Seoul dropped to 11th. Pohang stay 4th, but move away from Daegu in 5th. So those were Saturday's games. Let's crack on with Sunday. We'll go first of all to Ulsan Hyundai versus Gangwon. Ulsan were in first, having summited K1 thanks to their impressive win against a quality Daegu team last week. Gangwon were in sixth. They ended their losing streak in style against Gwangju, winning that game 4-1. Gangwon proving they've got the firepower. Was it enough to take down the new leaders? No, it wasn't. Ulsan won 1-0 to add to their 3-0 against the same opponents earlier in the season. Tom, how did this one go?
Well, it wasn't anywhere near as emphatic as the 3-0 win earlier in the season, that's for sure. It was more one of these that come the end of the game, you're as an Ulsan fan, you'd be absolutely chuffed that they've dug out a 1-0 win here. I mean, it could have been more goals because the first big chance fell to the man that Ulsan would have wanted it to in Junior, and surprisingly, he blazed way off target. It was a lovely layoff to him, and just as soon as he's in that position, you expect the net to bulge. But yeah, didn't even get it on target. Just way high, wide, and handsome. As soon as he got the ball, I was sure it was going to be 1-0, but he didn't. But then just a few minutes later, the 27th minute, Ulsan got a penalty. The ref took a second to think about it, and then he gave it. Obviously, VAR looked at it because they look at everything, but it was definitely a penalty. You see it live, it was a penalty. You see it on the replay, it's even more of a penalty. Gangwon player So Min-woo just pulled down Park Ju-ho. He would have been free in the box, but there were still defenders in front of him who would have blocked any kind of shot coming in. It was very silly defending. Junior stepped up, no messing around. It was right in the corner. The keeper dived the right way, but he was never getting close to it. 1-0, and it was a deserved lead at the time. What was a little bit strange was as soon as the penalty went in, Gangwon subbed. So, it was properly, the manager properly ruling with an iron fist there. It's, the one mistake and a yellow card and the guy's off 27 minutes in. It's the kind of thing you might do in a Football Manager or something, but to see it in real life, and So looked gutted. He was walking around the side of the pitch, head down, and looked like he was on the verge of tears. I mean, you can say you love to see strong management, but you also got to have a bit of sympathy for the man coming off. But yeah, one mistake and he was straight off. But for Ulsan, probably man of the match would have been Jo Hyun-woo. He made a good save in the first half after Kim Ji-hyun cracked a long-range effort late in the first half. It was the substitute who could come on, Kim, and it was the shot was fairly central, but it was hit with power, and it was one of those where the ball was wobbling from side to side. So you expect him to save it because it's down the middle, but you've also got to keep your eye on that. So good save, and got to say been digging the keepers out in recent weeks, but Jo Hyun-woo is clearly head and shoulders the best goalkeeper in the league, and I know a lot of people were surprised with his transfer that it wasn't over to Europe. Who knows, if he has another good season, then he might get another step up. So goalkeepers' careers go on longer, so he's got plenty of time ahead of him. Gangwon gave it a go. Gangwon really did give it a go, and there's a great picture at the end of the game with like 4 Gangwon players all lying on the ground, like absolutely exhausted. They did their best and they couldn't get the goal, and Jo Hyun-woo was just walking through the middle of them. It's you shall not pass type of thing. And the Gangwon chance right at the death from Lee Hyun-sik was, Joe did an absolutely brilliant save because it got a deflection off I'm sorry, I'm not sure who it was. We got deflection off one of the Ulsan guys, and Joe was completely wrong-footed, but he managed to get back and get a really strong hand on it as well. You know, if he'd have just got a touch, it was still would have gone in, but he was a really strong hand when he was completely wrong-footed. Brilliant save, and you never know, that could be the difference between first and second come the end of the season. It really could be that close. So got to give him the love while it's fresh in our memory. And yeah, Gangwon were pressing towards the end for the equaliser, but it was a really good defensive effort from Ulsan to see the game out. So yeah, all in all, a great weekend for Ulsan.
Yeah, we mentioned just going back to Gangwon, and we talked before how they're a bit of an up and down team. I think I likened them to Bournemouth, particularly because that run of games which they lost. I think 4 in a row. I think it was, which they snapped last week and started winning 4-1. So I know they lost this game, but will it almost feel like a draw, or will it almost kind of feel like a positive result in any way for Gangwon?
Certainly a positive performance for them, because they pushed the league leaders, and it took some really good goalkeeping to keep them out. So yeah, I mean, no, it won't feel like a draw. It won't feel like a victory of any kind, but it will be something that they'll go into training this week being like, look, if we play like this most weeks, we will pick up points. And I think you're being a bit harsh comparing them to Bournemouth, because as we speak, Bournemouth are losing to Southampton and look like they're going to get relegated. So yeah, I think you need to find a better team to compare them to.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I know what you mean. I think before, to be fair to me, which I like to be, I think last time I said like last season's version of Bournemouth, who could just lose 5 and then win 5. So yeah, we'll see how they go. I mean, we'll look at Gameweek 13, but they go away to Seongnam, which could be an interesting one. Seongnam just seems to have turned the corner a little bit, but yeah, there we go. So your final score there: Ulsan 1, Gangwon 0. Ulsan stay first. Gangwon dropped to 7th. This game was actually the only one to go the same way as the earlier meeting in the season, which is interesting. Right, let's move on to Suwon Samsung Blue Wings versus Seongnam FC. Suwon are in 8th, having drawn their last 2 games. Though both games that could easily have ended in victory, though. They'd also started finding the net a bit more regularly recently than they had earlier on in the season. Talking of finding the net, Seongnam, who are in 11th, had only scored 3 in their last 5, but will have been encouraged by their first half performance against Jeonbuk last weekend. We had this pegged as one for the purists. We didn't have it pegged as one for Seongnam fans, though, Tom, as the Magpies took 3 huge points.
Yeah, and they could have won this by more goals, which is a very surprising thing to say about Seongnam. You wouldn't have said that at half-time, though. It was a very quiet first half with only a couple of highlights. This, for me, was on the computer where I had it with some commentary while I was watching one of the other games up on the TV. I was like, well, I have it with the commentaries because Korean commentators get so excited. I know when to turn my attention fully to it. And that happened like twice, which really says something with Korean commentators, how excitable they get. So yeah, just twice in maybe 45 minutes. Now Sang-ho for Seongnam hit the post, but it was a shot that took a deflection, and it kind of summed up the first half because it was a deflected shot that came from some really scrappy play with the ball bouncing around all over the place. Taggart had half a shout for a Suwon penalty, but nothing doing. VAR not involved. It was a pretty much a nothing 45 minutes. Suwon had more possession, but Seongnam had triple the number of shots. Yeah, no goals. In the second half, decent half volley from Taggart, just wide. That was probably Suwon's best attempt, really, the whole game. But for Seongnam, it was a much better second half, and they thought they had the lead in the 70th minute. Iskandarov hit. It was a half volley for him as well. And it looked like a really good goal. A really long VAR check before it got chalked off. At first, really had no idea what we were looking for. Maybe a handball as 2 players went up for the header, but no, possibly a Seongnam foul as they went up. Maybe the forward was pushing the defender, but no, there was nothing in that. And then it turned out it was for an offside. And after a ton of replays, I still had no idea who was offside. The VAR in Korea don't do it with the lines, so it's very hard to see. You're looking with the naked eye, and the referee goes to the monitor to decide if it was offside or not. The commentators were as confused as me. They were talking a lot about a potential handball before they even realised it was an offside that they were looking for. And even with all the replays in the game, it was only until I saw the highlights after the game and then was pressing pause constantly before I worked out who it was who was offside and figured it out. And what it was that Yu In-soo from Seongnam was offside after the first header from Kim. But what you had to work out was it Kim or was it one of the Suwon defenders who got the touch? And it was, I mean, from the camera angles I saw, it was almost impossible to work out who had touched that ball. So I think, and not because I wanted Seongnam to win, I just think the benefit should go to the strikers there, to the forward team, because it seemed like it was a guess as to who actually touched that. And then the offside was so close as well that it just seemed, if that had been given a goal, I don't think there would have been any arguments either. But luckily for Seongnam, 10 minutes later, they had the ball in the back of the net, and so it didn't matter in the end. The winner was from Lee Chang-yong, and he climbed really high at the back post, like totally dominated Ling Sam-hyuk, and his header was brilliant into the far corner. Keeper had no chance. It was from a corner. It was Iskandarov put a great ball in. And I mean, if Suwon had a man on the post there, then he clears that. It's another one of those. If you have men on the post, maybe you're losing something else in your marking. Maybe you can't zonal mark. Man on the post saves a goal there, but he wasn't there, so it was a goal. There's no need for VAR because he just dominated his man in the air. Fairness to Lim, he had two men on him, so he was sandwiched between two Seongnam men, and he wasn't his man. He had made a really good run to the back post where nobody followed him, and so Lim ended up with marking his man and marking somebody else who was just taller, bigger, stronger. No chance. A couple of the Suwon players made a half-assed argument for a push or held him or something, but nothing of the sort. It was just a mismatch, and one player just completely dominating another. You don't see that very often with one guy. Just the defender had absolutely no chance. It was a really good goal. Seongnam almost doubled their lead later on, but it was it lobbed the goalkeeper and then it bounced and it landed on the roof of the net. There were only 4 minutes of added time. I've no idea because the VAR took at least 4 minutes. But even in that, Suwon didn't offer anything. Never looked like they were getting an equaliser. Seongnam held out for a much needed and deserved 3 points.
Yeah, big win there. I mean, you could probably say this about any of the teams in the bottom six, but these wins are like gold dust, really, for teams down there. And Seongnam were the only team winning in the bottom six. So Seongnam probably not going to be in danger of relegation, or at least still it's a bit early to say. But this will be a big win for the Magpies, won't it?
Yeah, it was a really good win, and it was only 1-0, but it was just because they dominated so much, and they had, one goal disallowed, 50-50, and then one bouncing onto the roof of the net. And it's just in my mind, as a half-assed Seongnam fan, I was thinking that's a 2-0 win, that's a 3-0 win, because it could have been and it should have been really. But I guess that sums Seongnam up a little bit that they don't score many goals, but this is probably the game they've dominated most this season that I can remember off the top of my head. Suwon didn't have a shot on target in this game, which says something about Suwon, but it also just highlights how well Seongnam played, particularly in the second half.
Your final score there: Suwon Blue Wings 0, Seongnam 1. Suwon dropped to 10th. Seongnam go up to 8th. Final game to recap from Game Week 12 was Incheon United versus Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors. Incheon in 12th, but in high spirits after their late equaliser against Sangju, went down to 9 men. They also had a whole week to prepare for this with no FA Cup involvement midweek. Jeonbuk were in second and coming off a draw against struggling Seongnam, which saw them lose top spot to Ulsan. We had this down as a routine victory on paper, and it was anything but, as Incheon held the champs for a draw.
Well, I was watching the other two games, so I still think that maybe you and Yumi are having me on a bit here. Are you sure it was a draw?
It was indeed a draw, and it was. mean, I'm not an Incheon fan, but I was knackered by the end of this game, just because I just, from a kind of a neutral perspective, I just wanted Incheon to get something out of this to make things interesting. A lot of games this week. First half was a bit slow, and we've seen this in the last few weeks, really. But this one was a very good first half, and particularly for Incheon, went ahead after 6 minutes. It was a counterattack by Incheon, which was a bit of a theme, as we'll come on to. And they only had 2 players forward. They're 2 wide attackers, Kim Jeonbuk, and he fed the ball right to Ji An-hak. Ji received the ball kind of outside of the box, right of centre. First touch wasn't great, and it just kind of took him slightly wider than he wanted. But second touch was just a rocket across the keeper into the top left corner, which I wasn't really expecting to see so early in the game. A couple of minutes later, we had a penalty shout for Jeonbuk. Free kick wide right, and the Jeonbuk attacker, he kind of ducked under the ball, but it hit his marker, the mustachioed Montenegrin Stefan Mugosa, who was just kind of standing behind him, hit him on the upper arm, and it was a really long VAR check for this, and it would have been an incredibly harsh penalty had it been given. But then it's one of those where you kind of wouldn't have almost been surprised. I was worried we were going to have another kind of silhouette situation here, but nothing we could do. His arm was down by his side, so he didn't have his arm up, but you never know. If Jeonbuk had scored from that would have really taken the winds out of Incheon's sails, but it wasn't given, so it stayed 1-0. And other than that, there wasn't really a ton to note about Jeonbuk first half. I mean, they did have most of the possession, about 63%, did have more shots, but Incheon never really seemed to be in any peril in the first half. Incheon got to half-time 1-0 up, and then the second half, kind of the pattern was really Jeonbuk attacking and Incheon trying to hit them on the break, which they were doing quite regularly and were doing quite well. And Incheon almost held out until the 81st minute. Lee Sung-ki with the equaliser. And the Incheon left back, he was trying to carry the ball out of defence down the left flank. But he got robbed just on the edge of his own third. And first thought was, well, that's a bit of an error. He should have just cleared it. But Incheon still had 8 players back defending. So, and if you're counter-attacking, you do need players who are going to travel with the ball up the pitch. You can't just always pass it onto an attack. You do need players who can dribble with it. So I give the left back a break on that. But it did lead to a goal, though. Jeonbuk cut the ball back, and it was a lovely dummy. And I missed who did the dummy because I couldn't tell from the pictures what his number was, but it was a great dummy. And it left Lee Sung-ki with the yard of space he needed, and it was just a tidy curled finish into the left stick. But then that wasn't the end of the action. Late in injury time, as we've seen in quite a few games actually in K1, certainly as the season's got going. And it was a Jeonbuk attack and a huge block by Incheon captain and central defender Lee Jae-sung. And I was just waiting for the back of the net to ripple. I thought this is definitely a goal. Some of the defending is a bit passive. That's been a criticism I've levelled in this league. And we saw it a little bit with Incheon in this game, but Lee showed the rest of the defence how to do it, just chucking his body in the way. But then Incheon defended the resulting corner, and then they almost went down the other end and scored themselves. So, really good, really fun game to watch. Probably one of the more fun games I've watched, actually. There was just kind of action and intrigue throughout the whole game. So, good game, and really pleased for Incheon to get something from this. But in terms of just general thoughts, Incheon had signed Costa Rican number 10 called Elias Aguilar, who's only played a couple of games. Certainly only played a couple of games for Incheon this season. He actually went on loan to them in 2018. He signed from Jeju United in K2. So he's a playmaker, kind of more in the mould of Palacios, I think, than Cesinha. So Palacios I kind of think of as a more kind of all-round attacking number 10 who can dribble, who can pass, more about movement, whereas Cesinha I tend to think of somebody who's a bit more direct, will take on long shots. But Aguilar reminded me a little bit more of Palacios. I mean, if he can be half as good as either of those players, he'll be a good acquisition. And he did look good for Incheon throughout. The other player I want to mention for Incheon, the mustachioed Mugosa up front. So he's always looked, this season, every time I've seen Incheon, I've always thought he looks like he could be a decent player, just needs a bit of support. And obviously, I don't really know anything about this league. So I went back and looked at his stats, and he's been at Incheon for a couple of seasons. And before this season, he'd scored 33 goals in 67 games. So clearly a good player. And if they can just get a bit more support up to him, a bit more ammunition coming in, who knows? This could be the start of the Incheon roller coaster. But in terms of Jeonbuk, do they have an issue when they don't score first? They've drawn their last 2 games, and those are the only games they've drawn this season. It seems like if they score first, they win. But this is 3 games in a row now where the other team has scored first. And for Jeonbuk, that's ended in a loss and 2 draws. One other game this season where they went behind first, and that was in Gameweek 7 against Pohang. Jeonbuk did win that one, but the winner came from an injury time corner, which is says more about Pohang, I think, than Jeonbuk. I don't know what the stats are across the rest of the league, but Jeonbuk, they just seem to be lacking a bit of firepower, and it's showing when they go behind. And at the beginning of the game, their 2 leading scorers were Han Kyo-won and Lee Dong-guk. They both had 4 goals. Han started off on the bench, possibly because of the FA Cup game midweek. Lee wasn't in the matchday squad. To be fair, he is 40, so he's not going to be involved every week. But next top scorer behind them was Lee Sung-ki, who scored today. He'd got 2 goals. So, possibly lacking a bit of firepower, I would say, about Jeonbuk.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I want to concentrate more on Incheon than Jeonbuk. Yes, Jeonbuk have their issues, and those stats were interesting that you say. But yeah, for Incheon, second. I mean, yeah, they haven't won this season, but I mean, a point against Jeonbuk is a fantastic result for them, and credit to them. They dug in last week with their 9 men, and then they've held the champions. So yeah, who knows if they can get a win or 2 in the next few weeks, then it's game on.
Yeah, hopefully not next week though against Pohang. So the comeback can start after that game.
That one doesn't matter to me. I would like them to get their first win soon and make it a bit more interesting down at the bottom.
I mean, do you know what? To be honest, Pohang are going well. I wouldn't begrudge Incheon their first victory. It would seem kind of fairly Pohang thing to happen. I think they're kind of the new Ulsan in their kind of level of Spursiness. So we'll see what happens there. But your match there finished. Incheon 1, Jeonbuk 1. Incheon stay in 12th. Jeonbuk stay 2nd. Right, so how did we do in our predictions? Well,
better than last week.
Better than last week. Coming off your blank from last week, you got 3, which I think is the pass score. Yumi got 2, I got 2. Just kind of the obvious ones there, Pohang and Ulsan. So you go ahead now in the league standings. You're on 33, I'm on 32, and Yumi's on 27. In terms of K1, after finally getting back to the top last weekend, Ulsan extend their lead to 3 points from Jeonbuk in 2nd. Sangju Sangmu stay 3rd after their win, but they are now only 2 points behind Jeonbuk. And then they've got Pohang behind them, just a point behind in 4th. Pohang now have a bit of daylight between them and Daegu, who are 4 points behind in 5th after their back-to-back losses. And it's then a further 4 points down to Busan in 6th. In the bottom half, Seongnam are the biggest beneficiaries of this weekend's results. They are in 8th, 1 point behind Gangwon in 7th. And beneath them, 1 point separates Gwangju, Suwon Blue Wings, and FC Seoul. And Incheon now fractionally less adrift than they were last week. They're still in 12th, but only 6 points off 11th. In terms of the goal scorers, Ulsan's Junior Negrao, of course, still top. He moves on to 15, thanks to his penalty. Pohang's Ilychenko moves on to 9. And Daegu's Cecilia still on 7. And Gwangju's Felipe still on 6. And Tom, just to wrap up this weekend, I mean, goalkeepers, they've come back, apart from the Seoul Pohang game, where there are a couple of questionable decisions by the goalkeepers. It seemed to be a good week for goalkeepers.
Yeah, it was. There was some good saves. It was more about the saves, like the reaction saves, rather than dominating the box at corners, free kicks, things like that. I think that has been where we've seen some of the issues. Is I'm not sure if it's the communication or if it's just like the presence. I think, I mean, how do you describe presence? You look at someone like, I don't know, we're going back a while, but Peter Schmeichel or Kasper Schmeichel, they have presence in goal. And a lot of the Korean keepers don't seem to have that. Maybe I don't know if that's something you can work on or not, but this weekend there was some really, really good reaction saves. So, credit where credit's due. Keepers had a good weekend.
Yeah, must have been listening to the pod as well, presumably.
I'm assuming that's what their motivation is. I'm doing the team talk for them.
Yeah, that's it. Probably playing it in the change rooms before the games.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Yeah.
So there you go. That's our game week 12 recap done and dusted. We'll move on to our game week 13 preview after this short break. Right, game week 13. What have we got for you there? Well, let's start with Saturday and Sangju Sangmu at home to Ulsan Hyundai. Almost without doubt the biggest game of the weekend. This is Sangju in third, at home to Ulsan in first. Sangju, the form team in the division, only conceded once in their last 6, and that was a last-minute equaliser of Incheon, of all teams. And Ulsan have only lost once this season, and that was to Jeonbuk. How's this one going?
Yeah, it could be a really tight game. Sangju don't concede many, but Ulsan are the free scorers of the division, so I expect a bit of defence via attack, which I think will suit Sangju because I think they can defend and then they can hit on the break as well. But I'm going to shade this to Ulsan because I think this weekend they proved that they can win ugly. Maybe that's been a bit harsh on them this weekend, but with a penalty and then some good keeping, I think that is kind of an ugly win. So I'm just going to go with Ulsan. I think they can score at any time really with Junior, and they looking better in defence. So it's one of those I really wouldn't be surprised if it was a draw, but I'm going to go with an away win for Ulsan here. And despite Yumi not being with us, she did actually send through her predictions, and she's agreeing with me. She's going Ulsan as well.
Clean sweep. I'm going for Ulsan on this one as well. Seongnam at home to Gangwon, also taking place Saturday. Seongnam in 8th, a win and 2 draws from their last 4. Seems to be getting back on track after a horrible run of losses for the Magpies. Gangwon are in 7th, 1 point ahead of them. They got a big 4-1 win versus Gwangju 2 weeks ago and only lost 1-0 to Ulsan this weekend. Can Gangwon grab this one, Tom?
I think yes, but I'm going to go with a draw just because I've been impressed with Seongnam the last couple of weeks, and particularly today. Today was their best performance of the season for me. So I think with a fairly solid defence that Seongnam have, they can keep Gangwon quiet. Probably 0-0, 1-1. Gangwon will dominate. I think Gangwon will shade it, but I think Seongnam can hold out. And Yumi agrees with me.
I've gone for Gangwon win on this one. Right, the third game on Saturday is Gwangju FC at home to Suwon Samsung Blue Wings. Gwangju in 9th, Suwon in 10th. 2 teams who occasionally give the impression they're going to have a breakout game any moment, but then they don't. Could that happen in this game, Tom?
Well, Gwangju haven't won in the league in 6, and Suwon haven't won in the league in 5. So it's 2 seriously out of form sides, and I think that's just going to make not a particularly good game. I'm calling this a draw, and I'm calling it a bore draw. Yumi has also gone a draw on this one as well. I don't know whether she agrees it's going to be boring or not, but she agrees it's going to be a draw.
Yeah, it looks like that, doesn't it? Yeah, I've gone for a draw on this one. Probably low scoring, but fingers crossed. Moving on to Sunday, Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors versus FC Seoul. Jeonbuk second top, Seoul second bottom. Seoul continuing to ship goals. Jeonbuk without a win in 3 games. So Seoul at home is the ideal bounce back game. Is that how this one's going to go, Tom?
Well, you'd have thought the ideal bounce back game from their previous 2 bad results was today against Incheon, but not to be. Yeah, I think it's just a little blip. And like you say, this is having Seoul at home next weekend is the bounce back game they want. Seoul have only beaten Incheon in the league since the 22nd of May. It's a stretch of 8 games, including 6 defeats, conceding 16 goals and only scoring 3. Jeonbuk comfortable win.
Yeah, and I think Yumi's gone for Jeonbuk as well, as have I. Okay, Pohang Steelers versus Incheon United. Pohang 4th and motoring along nicely. Great game from Palacios means they can ease Palacios back in gently. Incheon 12th, coming off 2 draws against 2 of the other Power 5 teams. Can they get another?
No, I don't think so. And it's a bit of a shame for Incheon because I think if they were playing one of the teams in the bottom half, you might back them. But unfortunately for them, they're coming up against a strong Pohang. So I'm going to go with a Pohang win. Pohang are in good form, 5 league wins in a row. I expect it to be 6. Obviously, Yumi disagrees and is predicting an Incheon win, and it's looking that little bit closer to her getting one of these Incheon wins right.
Yep, I've gone for Pohang on this one, but just looking at the fixtures after game week 13, Incheon have got Gwangju at home, and then they've got Seongnam at home. So, let's see where we are in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, might have to agree with Yumi one week and predict an Incheon win just to try and keep that lead ahead of her, but who knows?
Okay, and the final game of the weekend is Daegu FC at home to Busan iPark. Daegu in 5th, 2 losses in a row, but can console themselves with the fact that they were against the 1st and 3rd place teams. Busan are in 6th. 3 wins and 3 losses have established them as a decent mid-table team. We talked about Incheon's run, but Busan have got a tough run coming up with Daegu, of course, in Game Week 13, and then Ulsan and Sangju. How's this one going to go?
Yeah, so Daegu have gone from being, just a couple of weeks ago, being the form team in the league to 2 straight league defeats, and a cup exit in between. While since the last meeting between these 2 sides, which finished in a draw, Busan have gone unbeaten in league and cup, a stretch of 8 games. So, you could say this is a real good chance for Busan here to get 3 points, but I don't think they will. I think Daegu are going to bounce back. I think Sasini is going to get back on the score sheet, and Daegu are going to come out victors.
I think Yumi's gone for Daegu as well. I've gone for a draw here. I'm really looking forward to this one. I think this one's going to be really interesting. Daegu need that bounce back win, but I think Busan have shown that they are a quality team. I don't think they are in the same bracket as Daegu, and it would take a lot, I think, for Busan to break into that leading group. But if anyone can do it, I think it probably will be Busan, given how inconsistent Gangwon are. So, yeah, looking forward to that one. We'll see how that goes. Right, and that's our Game Week 12 pod done and dusted. Tom, thank you very much. Kamsahamnida.
Thanks, mate. I hope we get Yumi back next week. I know we all miss her input as well.
Hope to have you back soon, Yumi, if you're listening. Well, of course you're listening. So, look forward to getting your input back. And kamsahamnida to you, to listener. You can stay up to speed with us on social media, at Gazetta Korea on Twitter. We're also on YouTube, where we host the video version of these podcasts, and we're on Facebook as well. In the meantime, stay subscribed to the podcast, and we look forward to catching up with you next weekend for some more K-League action.